I'd like to call this meeting to order of the City Council General Government Committee meeting. And if you would please, call the roll.
Councilmember Dennehy, absent. Councilmember Gonzalez, absent. Councilmember Jaquez, absent. Councilmember Meisner, absent. Councilmember Reed,
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick,
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here.
And tonight we have 2 items on our agenda, and we are a little bit time limited. We do need to be out of here by 6 o'clock this evening. There's a meeting following right at 6. But we're going to be doing a point-in-time count presentation by Loaves and Fishes. And Dee Dee, will that be you?
So I'm sorry I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I handed out the slides that we're going to be talking through. Just a little history about point-in-time count. So every year, HUD requires communities across the United States to count the number of individuals who are experiencing homelessness on a given night. And this count is always done in January, and it's always done the last week in January. And generally speaking, Fremont County always selects the last Tuesday of the month. And so that's when this count was conducted in January 2020. You'll notice on the PowerPoint or the slides that I gave you, there's also a count we did in August. So this last August, the Homeless Coalition wanted to do a count of the number of people experiencing homeless on a given night in August. And so we have that data that we'll be looking at tonight too. So the good news, great news is that we're actually seeing a reduction. And you'll see it's a 23% reduction. January of 2019, we had 128 individuals that were homeless on that given night. And in January 2020, we had 98. And then on your slides, you'll see that 58 of them were unsheltered and 40 of them were sheltered. Sort of the difference between that is unsheltered means that they're like living outside. So they're in a tent, they're in their car, they're in a shed, they're in a place that's considered uninhabitable, maybe a trailer that has no running water or electricity, that kind of thing. Sheltered would mean that they're staying in an emergency shelter. So Fremont County has 2 emergency shelters. One is Loaves and Fishes, and then the other one is a domestic violence shelter. Also counted in here is New Creations Inn. So New Creations Inn is a transitional housing unit, and we have 9 residents there. And so when you're staying in transitional housing, it's also considered homeless. So those numbers are also captured under the sheltered. The next slide, you'll see that out of the 98, 49 were women, 49 were men, 37 were women, and 12 were children. One of the things that the Homeless Coalition started probably about maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we wanted to ask additional questions. And some of that was because of our conversations that we had with council, because you're like, well, what's the rest of the story? And so the Homeless Coalition kind of put together some additional questions. And one of the questions that we always get asked is, the people who are currently experiencing homelessness in Fremont County, are they even Fremont County residents, or are they coming here for whatever reasons? And so one of the first questions we ask is how long you have lived in Fremont County. And you'll notice that when you look at January 2020 and January 2019, it runs really close to around the 50%. So half of those that we interviewed were Fremont County residents, and the other half were not. It is interesting, I think, to note that in August, 3 out of every 4 people that we actually interviewed was a Fremont County resident. So I think there is this misconception that people come using this data. There's this misconception that people come to Fremont County in the summer, but if we looked at this, actually the reality is people come to Fremont County in the winter more than what they come in the summer. One of the things that the Homeless Coalition talked about was like, why is that? And as we were talking about that amongst ourselves, we discovered that it's really easy to get water here in Fremont County than what it is in other counties in the winter. Also our weather, right? We get snow, but it generally melts pretty quickly. And so those are just some of the reasons why people kind of migrate here in the winter months. Then you'll see that another question that we ask is, what brought you to Fremont County? And January 2020, the most, 30% of them said family and friends. And then 22%, as you can read this for yourself, is resources. Resources, obviously that's could be Department of Human Services, it could be Sylvista Health, could be Rocky Mountain Behavioral Health, could be Loaves and Fishes, it could be Council of Government. Just our community is very helpful. I mean, I think that's a good quality to have, right? That people come here because we're friendly and we're helpful. But that was one of the reasons that they came here. Thought it was interesting that 17% said that they were stranded here. And we see that a lot, that people's vehicles break down and they're kind of stuck here. Or, man, we've had stories where people have literally gone to Walmart, and when they've walked out of Walmart, their friend has left them. And they're like, now what do I do? And so, or they've been told to get out of the car, and they're stuck here. So it does happen. The next one, it says, for those who lived here less than a year, where did you live prior to moving here? And you can see in January 2020, 43% came from outside of Colorado, and then 57% actually came from within Colorado. And then you can see the breakdown of where they came from. Again, I think it's good news when we look at within Colorado, 31% came from the Upper Arkansas region. Upper Arkansas region would be obviously Fremont County, would be Chaffee, Custer, Teller, Park. None of those places have an emergency shelter. So we are literally the closest emergency shelter to many of those places. And so that's one of the reasons why they would come here. Good news is Chaffee County is in the process, hopefully, of getting an emergency shelter. So we'll see what happens with that. So, we also ask what caused you to become homeless. Mental health, substance use, and physical health continues to be the #1 reason for all 3 times, as you can see here. And I don't think that comes as any surprise to any of us. And then if we go down to the next one where it says, what type of assistance would be most helpful? Individuals were asked to select their top 3 choices. And again, the #1 assistance that would be most helpful would be finding housing. And then transportation for January and August was #2 for that. So I don't think those are necessarily any surprises. The other thing that we get asked a lot is, do they have any income? And so when we looked at January 2020, 48% of them said they had no income, and then 52% of them said they had income. And panhandling, as you can see, ranks #1 at 44, and then day labor at 33%. So. And then, do you receive any public assistance? Did you receive any public assistance this month? And again, January 2020, 12% received no public assistance. And then January 2019, 26% received no public assistance. So again, I think that speaks to our community, right? That we would like to, everyone who's eligible for public assistance, no matter what community they're in, are eligible for public assistance. So it doesn't matter, so it's good to know that people who are experiencing homelessness in Fremont County are tapping into those resources that they're entitled to get. And so I look at it as being a positive thing. And then again, you can see what type of public assistance that they are receiving. So I rattled that off really, really quickly, and I know you guys have it in front of you, but I was just wondering if you have any questions for me regarding the point-in-time count.
Any questions from council? Sure.
So, Danny, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the time that you just take. I know that this is a labor of love for you, and we really appreciate that. I think this data is really helpful. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of misconceptions at times about where these people are coming from and why they're here and things that we can do. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to spend some time going over this and then maybe reach out with additional questions maybe later this week. Definitely got my mind thinking a lot, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And our hope is for the Homeless Coalition that we will actually do another count in August of this year so we can kind of compare. And then I guess before we go on to the next thing, there's just one thing I really want to mention too is when we did the count in January 2019, we knew that those counts would probably be lower because Journey Home had just opened the summer before that. And so we knew that many of the people who moved into Journey Home, if Journey Home wasn't built, we would have been counting them in January. And so the coalition kind of said 2020 is going to be the test because we won't have another Journey Home. So just the fact that our numbers are going down is a good thing. I mean, that's a reason to celebrate, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, Loaves and Fishes is part of it, but part of it is, I think about the co-responder team that we have with the Canyon City Police Department and Sylvista Health. I think of the work that Autumn has done with getting vouchers to get people into housing. I mean, there's lots of great things that are happening in our community around homelessness, and a lot of people that are really making a difference, so.
Brian?
Yeah, Dee Dee, I echo what Councilman Reed said. I do have a question about individuals selected their top 3 choices of what type of assistance would be most helpful, and transportation came up. Do you have a sense if that's transportation within the community or transportation outside of the community?
No, I would say it's transportation within the Penrose, Florence, and Canyon City, that kind of triangle right there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Mayor Smith?
Dee Dee, I was curious where the Homeless Coalition is and Loaves and Fishes as far as expanding your facilities, or if you're hoping that we'll get to the point where we don't need to have those extra beds.
So I think that would be a wonderful hope, right? But the reality is that we know that there will always be people experiencing homelessness in our community, hopefully not for long term and hopefully not repeat. But there will always be someone that loses a home, their car breaks down, maybe they're released from jail or prison, whatever. There's all kinds of stories that someone could become homeless for. And so our board has decided to expand our emergency shelter. Right now, our planning is to do 20 men beds and 10 women beds, and then we'd like to have 3 family dorms. We've already reached out to Department of Local Affairs, and they've kind of told us sort of what the next steps are, because that would be one of the people that we would go to receive funding for. We've contacted a construction company who's supposed to be coming either probably next week or the week after, just kind of look at our building, because we're not sure if we want to just expand on our building, or if we want to build the emergency shelter in the property that we have behind our building. A lot of that has to do with really codes. Like if we start expanding our current building, does that mean that our building needs to be sprinkled, the whole building? I mean, we just have lots of questions. And so this guy is going to be able to help us answer those questions. He also can help us connect with an architect and those type of things. So excited about that. So we'll see where we're going. But yeah, the plan is to currently expand our emergency shelter. Will it happen before next winter? Gosh, I don't think so. I would love to say it would, but this is the fact that we decided to do this and we're taking steps toward it. It's a good thing, so.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that is an absolutely good thing. And just point out too that we were able to meet with the fire department, and we do have 10 extra spots this winter. Has that been sufficient for your needs?
Yeah. What we saw is that we pretty much had people sleeping on our floor every single night. And as you know, the fire department gave us permission to have 10 extra people on our floor. There were nights that we had more than 10 people who wanted to sleep on our floor, but people, there's just this really amazing community that happens when you're homeless, and people understand just everyone's situation, and they really are considerate and caring for one another. And there were people who had cars, and they said, you know what, I will sleep in my car because I have a car, even though they knew that they had to turn their car on to keep it warm, even though they didn't have money for gas and all that other kind of stuff, but they were willing to do that and give up their space on the floor for someone who didn't have any type of shelter at all. So we saw that over and over and over again, that people were saying, oh, no, you stay here, I have a car, and you don't. And so, yeah, that was nice to see, but sad to see also, right? That we didn't have enough space.
And so Dee Dee, thank you for that, and indeed, thank you and Loaves and Fishes for all that you do for our community. It really is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Well, Dee Dee does need to introduce
yes.
some
Yes.
really, really important people in our community that were probably a big part in seeing the reduction in these numbers.
Absolutely, yes. So we, as you know, Fremont
Come on,
County
yeah,
was.
you guys all come
Yes,
up.
stand
I'm
up,
really
guys.
proud of these
Okay,
guys.
yes. So we were selected, 5 communities in Colorado were selected to be part of Built for Zero. And you, again, have some information on your slides about that. And so Built for Zero is just this initiative that helps communities get to functional zero. Functional zero, just in a nutshell, means that the number of people who are experiencing homelessness and the number of people who just became homeless is less than the number of people who are being housed. And so what that means is that your numbers are going down instead of going up. And they have this whole equation, and they have a database that our data girl Jennifer works every month and enters all this data in. And so it's pretty exciting. And there's 2 slides about Built for Zero and Community Solutions and just some of the stuff that they have done across the United States. And so what we need to hear today is that functional zero, ending homelessness, is possible, and there are communities across the United States that have done it, and there are communities, large communities that have done it, and rural communities that have done it. So it can happen in both. So that is great news. So the amazing team here is, I'll let you introduce yourself and you can say where you're at. So.
All right, so I'm Heather Engel. I'm a care manager, so Vista Health. I kind of represent the mental health portion, part of our team, for the improvement team. I also am in charge of the outreach coordination, so coordinating with different agencies and community members, whether that's the natural outreach that they do or the street outreach that we're doing at locations that we find these individuals. Food banks, Mercy Ministries, the library, hopefully eventually the river walks. We're in touch with the BLM representative to let us know where camps are also, so kind of doing the outreach portion of that.
Which is brand new, so we've never really had coordinated outreach before, and so yay, this is the girl.
I'm Jennifer Jones. I work at Loaves and Fishes Ministries. I'm the data lead for the Built for Zero team, so I'm in charge of crunching the numbers and keeping track of the people that are coming into our awareness that are homeless each month, and those that are leaving into housing, and those that become inactive.
Hi, I'm Autumn Deaver. I'm the Housing Director for the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments, and I help with providing housing for the folks that they identify that are homeless. So I find vouchers to help people assist in paying rent, and we recently also hired a housing navigator to help people find housing. So a lot of people get discouraged because they hear a lot, no, we're not gonna rent to you, or no, it's not available, or whatever. So starting Monday, started on Monday, I now have a person that will help them go out and find a place to live.
Marty Peak, I'm the Fremont County Veteran Service Officer, and you noticed in some of the data that they split out homeless and chronic homeless and veterans. And so me and a couple of the veterans are taking the veterans under our wing and trying to identify unique individual issues and barriers related to the veteran population.
All right, so I just want to draw your attention to a couple of slides. And so you see on your slide, we had a big kickoff on November 20th here, and it was huge success. Over 100 people came, and I know many of you guys were there. But at the kickoff, we said that we had 11 veterans and 94 chronic households on our list at that time. Let me just say first that Community Solution asks you, instead of trying to tackle the whole problem of homelessness, is that you really work on the subpopulation. So we're working on veterans, and then we're working on chronic homeless, which would be individuals and households. But we also know that there are just people who are homeless that aren't chronic. Chronic means that you've been a homeless a year or longer. But we're really concentrating on these 2 subpopulations. But the things that we're learning in these 2 subpopulations, we can obviously apply to the other populations. So just makes it more manageable. And so the great news is, as you look over and turn the page, is that you'll see that we actually have a 27% reduction in veteran homelessness. Since November, we have housed 4 veterans. And as you can see, since November, we've also identified 4 new veterans, and currently our veteran household list is at 10 right now. And then when you look at the chronic, we actually have a 38% reduction, and since November, this is, like, we should be like doing a happy dance right now. 46 households, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, oh, yes, and I forgot to mention that Ashley is part of our Built for Zero improvement team too, so.
You were just about to get
yes.
scolded on that.
Pardon me?
You were just about to get scolded on
Oh,
that.
yes, I'm sorry, yes, I can't believe it. And Stacy Quiddick from Department of Human Services, she wasn't able to join us tonight, she's also part of our team. So 46 households got housed since November. Since November, we've also identified 26 new households that are experiencing homelessness. So our list as of today stands with 60 households on it that are currently homeless that we consider chronic. So yeah, so it is happening. We're making change, and we're really excited. And I need to say also that Community Solutions is like really excited about Fremont County and the work that's happening here. And their plan, I just shared with the team, they're planning a special site visit here on August 21st. They want to, April, thank you, thank you. Whew, April 21st, and they're going to come down and they're going to really do some intense training with us, technical assistance. They believe that we can reach functional zero by the end of the year. So we'll see. Okay, yeah, so we'll see. So we're hopeful. They don't select a lot of communities. It's something that they do internally, and they're like, yeah, I think Fremont County has the people and support community-wide to make this happen. And so they're actually coming down and doing a special trip and meeting with us. So excited about that. All right, thank you.
Councilman Meisner?
I'm a little late, but I noticed on the numbers thing, we started out with 11 veterans. We housed 4, and we have 4 newly identified.
Yes.
But then it says 10.
Yes. Yeah, and that would like be a total error on Dee Dee's part. So it is.
Is it 11?
No, I can tell you. I can tell, as the data lead. So one of the families didn't meet the criteria after
Okay,
we
so-
looked into the.
So the 10's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So we didn't include anyone that moved to inactive or was no longer eligible in that criteria. So you will see a skew in the numbers a little bit.
Okay, Councilman Reed?
If individual community members are interested in helping with homelessness, who should we refer them to first?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No problem. If we have individual community members who are wanting to get involved and help with people that are experiencing homelessness, who should we send them to first to be able to get them plugged in to be able to help you guys?
Yeah, I would say have them call Loaves and Fishes, and they can talk to myself or Jennifer, and then we'll go from there. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor Smith?
I would just like to say that it's really awesome to be able to get behind a community that's really so gung-ho and passionate in getting results, especially for solving one of the most serious problems that Canyon City is facing today, and that is the significant number of folks in Canyon City that are experiencing homelessness. And so I really want to thank you for tackling that. I just want to point out a little bit more about the Built for Zero program that we received a scholarship from Kaiser Permanente to participate in it. And all of us, everyone here and I were able to go to the convention on that. And while we're at that convention, we learned some really important things for getting these numbers. And one of those was one of Jennifer's specialties is creating that name-by-name list. They go twice a month, they sit together and go name by name for every single person that they know that's homeless. And that is a huge game changer. And they bring stakeholders together to come and meet each person's individual needs. Something we realized that we had a shortfall on when we compared ourselves to other communities was outreach. And Heather's taken that on, and now we have outreach. I did talk to Ryan, and it sounded like we might be able to do the CLIck thing for homelessness. If you see, and maybe you can address us and tell us a little bit more about that.
The C-Click fix?
Yeah, for outreach. So if we see a homeless encampment somewhere, you can report that online on the C-Click Fix, and we can connect you to those spots. So that will help your outreach to know where some of those populations are, that we can help connect them to services. And then also I want to point out to Autumn, we also, while we were at that convention, is like, man, we are really lacking in a housing navigator. This is something we really could use to help our homeless population. And she came home and immediately wrote an application for a grant and got it like that. She's pretty amazing. She turns things into gold for Canyon City. And now we have our housing navigator starting on Monday, which is going to continue to help to see these numbers go. And of course, Marty is amazing because he takes care of our vets. And I've heard from, Marty, I want you to know, I've heard from other folks in the community that you've connected to them and they really appreciate it and they trust you and they feel comfortable coming to you.
Thank you.
And he's also really enlisted the the general veteran population themselves to come and really gather and put their arms around their homeless veteran comrades. And this is a pretty amazing team. And I want you to know that for me as a mayor, and I believe our council too, we're behind you, and we want to help you to be successful with the tools that you need.
Councilman Meisner.
It's the same question that I had before, but the math's bigger, so it took me a calculator to figure this one out. But we have the same scenario in terms of, by the calculations of what we gained and lost, we should be at 74, but we're at 60. And what happened to those 14?
So those 14, either they are, most of them have just moved to inactive. So what happens is that we make at least 3 attempts in a 90-day period after someone's identified as being homeless, or we've been doing the homeless assessment called a VI SPDAT since January of 2018, or 2018. And so we had lots of people on the list that we hadn't had a chance to connect with. And so by having this case conferencing that Ashley was talking about every other week, we're able to, as different organizations come together and talk about people one-on-one, and we found out that that person is no longer connected to anyone, potentially moved out of the area, but won't return phone calls or emails to verify that situation. So they move to inactive if no one's made contact with them in 90 days. So that's the difference in the number. We didn't want to boggle you down with the bad news. We wanted to highlight the good news about
Well,
how many are being housed, but it does throw off the numbers a little bit.
I find it interesting that you said that you try to contact them via a phone call or email.
Or face-to-face, if someone that's around the table at case conferencing knows the individual, they try to connect as well. But those are the main sources of communication that we ask for them to provide, so.
What percentage of your folks that you work with have active email and messaging?
You'd actually be surprised that the majority of them do.
Okay.
Yep.
And I wouldn't say that's bad news. It was just that we have these people that are on our list. We've tried numerous times to reach out to them,
Right,
and we
yeah.
just had to move them off our list, so. Yeah.
Right.
Right. Seeing no more questions from council, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. And do we want to hear from Pastor Jamie?
Well, Autumn still wanted to give us a quick report
Oh.
on just Journey Home in general and where things have been at. You've been up and running for a little while now, and how are things going?
So Journey Home has been open for 1.5 years now. And I think it's a huge success. The numbers say, the numbers are saying that, and then the people that we deal with in that complex have amazing stories. So one of the families, when she moved into the apartment building, she was a single mom. She had a child who had seizures, and she was living in her car. She moved into Journey Home and stabilized. So she went and got her CNA license. So she had a job. She got a job. Her child was able to start taking medications and not have seizures as often as she was having them. The child started going to school. After she'd lived in the building for 1 year, she decided that she was stable enough, so she decided she wanted to move to the Midwest and be closer to family. And she recently has come back to our community, but she has a full-time job. Her child is in school on a regular basis. The child is not having seizures like she was having them. And she is so excited, and she is just excited that things have changed in that 1.5 years since when she moved into that building. We have other people in that building I actually had a gentleman, the day he moved into the building, come up to me and tell me, had you not let me move into this building, I'd be dead. He's elderly, he's disabled, and he was living in his car, and he said, if I had to spend another summer in my car, I would not have made it. We also have a young gentleman in that building who is living under a tarp. And he moved into the building, and after just a few months, he decided he needed to go get his GED. So he did that. And then he also decided, after getting his GED, he's like, okay, I want to go to college. So he went and enrolled in college. He's almost done with his
He's in his second year right now.
He's in his second year, and he's already making plans to go into a 4-year college to continue his education. So, and I could probably go through everybody that's living in that building and tell you a similar story. So it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. We are providing services for them, we're helping them be stable, and they are becoming productive citizens. I had a conversation with the police chief recently, and he even said that, you know, when we first moved people into the building, they were still having police contact. The police were being called to the building on a regular basis. He said if he's there twice a week, that's a lot for them right now. So he's really excited of what they're doing there in that building too. Do you have?
Yeah, I just to give you some idea of what is going on in the building. So just recently, they started something called Love Yourself and Love Your Family, and it was we received funding from the Colorado Health Foundation, and it incentivizes the tenants to get involved with medical or their mental health or their physical health, to have doctor's appointments and stuff like that. And so as the first time they may get a $10 gift card, then as they go like a couple more appointments, then they get maybe a first aid kit or an electric toothbrush or something, just things around good health. Out of the 47 people that are living there, that's 37 adults and 10 children, 32 of them are enrolled in this, are participating in this Love Yourself, Love Your Family. Working with Green Thumb Initiative, they're coming over and teaching classes. Sylvista Health is over there on a regular basis teaching classes. Fourth Friday of the month, Sylvista has a nurse practitioner that comes over there for 4 hours, and they actually have a clinic where our tenants can go downstairs and meet with her, and if there's prescriptions or anything like that that need to be written, she can help with that. And so that's just another really great thing. The other thing is that they recently started a resident council. So 2 tenants from each floor make up this resident council, and they meet once a month about how to make Journey Home a healthier place, make it more of a community, all that kind of stuff, address needs that need to be addressed. And then the last thing I'll mention is the property manager, Cardinal Capital. They actually put in a garden in the backyard with these 14 raised garden beds, and 12 of those garden beds have been adopted out by Journey Home tenants. And so this summer, with the help of Green Thumb Initiative, they're going and they're going to learn how to garden, they're going to learn how to pick, and they're going to learn how to can and cook and all those types of things. So there's just a lot of cool things that are happening. Definitely was a learning curve. Anytime you take 30 families that were previously homeless and you throw them in an apartment and say behave and all that kind of stuff, sometimes there's going to be some hiccups, but they are working through it, and yeah, it's a good thing. So.
All really positive news. Councilman Meisner.
Autumn and I have had some brief discussions on this issue, but as I understood Journey Home to start with, it was really a temporary environment. It seems like we're more in a semi-permanent environment than we are a temporary environment, or at least a transitional environment. Where's that whole concept stand now that we're up and running? That it doesn't seem as though that we're able to accommodate the transition portion of that whole process as we maybe had intended.
So this is a supportive housing complex. And the idea is, as long as they need support, they can live in the building. So based on other projects similar to this, they say that 30% of folks will live there for about 1 year to 3 years. 30% will live there from 3 to 7 years, and then 30% will live there as long as they need to, for quite a while. So at the end of the first year, we actually had 5 people say, we have decided we're going to move on and move out of the building. And we have people continuing still saying, okay, I've reached a point where I've decided I don't need to be here anymore and I'm gonna go to my next step. So it's a regular, I mean, I say regular, but you know, we have 1 or 2 people moving out, just like a regular apartment building. So there are people who have settled enough and have decided they're at a point where they can move on to the next step, and some people are saying, no, I need the support and I probably will be here for a while.
I would also just like to point out that there are some folks that are living at Journey Home that have been frequent users of the emergency system. And now that they're at Journey Home, they are no longer frequent users. I mean, there was a gentleman that just moved in the last couple of months who has literally been homeless in our community, Fremont County resident, in our community for the last 20 years. He is now living there. There's a couple of other people that just come to my mom that have some severe mental illness issues, and they have been in and out of hospitalization, lots of police contact, lots of emergency room visits. None of that has happened since they've been at Journey Home. So it's both. It's those that maybe just need a couple years of help and they're ready to move on, but then it's also those that this may be their last home. This may be where they live for many, many years. But while they're there, they're moving forward, they're learning, they're living in community, they're knowing what it's like to live in society. They're not being those frequent users of the ERs and police contact and stuff like that, so.
Ryan?
Autumn, I was just curious. I know when Journey Home opened, there was a long list of people who were waiting to get in, and I'm assuming that you're still maintaining a list of potential residents. So, are you seeing that list decrease at all?
So actually, we use the by name list that we talked about earlier at case conferencing to identify the folks that move into that building. So I think Dee Dee mentioned our assessment that we use, the VI SPDAT. And there's a score that goes along with that when that's complete. And those folks that have the highest vulnerability and the highest need are selected to move into Journey Home. So yes, that list is long based on these numbers that we showed you today too.
So what's the answer?
Yes.
What's the answer to his question?
So the list is still long and we still have, I
So-
mean, we're doing better because we're identifying other ways of housing them, but we're using the folks off of that list that we have. So yes, there's still a list, it's still long, but we're working on it.
And could I just add too,
Yes,
that
please.
permanent supportive housing is just one part of the solution. That's not the answer. Chances of Fremont County ever getting another Journey Home probably is not likely, at least not for many, many, many years down the road. And so that's where Built for Zero comes in, right? That's where we start thinking creatively and we start thinking about landlord engagement. What can we do to get landlords involved to help us house people? I mean, there's more than one way to solve this, and it's not building another Journey Home.
Okay. Did we need, so is that everything that we needed? Great. Well, thank you very much. It's very inspirational to hear about the successes, and we do thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're, Pastor Jamie is not here. I do not see him. Oh, there you are. I didn't see you. I didn't recognize you without the hat.
I get that a lot, so I won't keep you all too long, as we know we got a meeting at 6 too, if I'm not mistaken, we're right about there. And I myself got to get on the road here in just a few minutes, so. Thank you all for giving the time, as we're just going to address just a few topics of the day center that we had discussed just a few days prior. We've obviously been engaged in this situation. The paper you have in front of you is 3 years old. That was the rough draft copy, so don't mind the margin errors and a few things that are probably on the latter page. Some of those projects are not in effect, obviously, because of some of the people that were involved at the beginning. We're not able to continue, so there's a few things on that list, like the garden, that's not in effect there. And the parking situation that was on there, we offered for the first year with an agreement with the sheriff's office that we would help them for the first year, and then we're trying to come up with better remedies now of how to seal and deal with those situations. Anyway, going into 3 years of just helping out individually through the day center, what we're calling the day center there on the other end of Canyon, we've been opening the doors as regularly as possible with the volunteers we've had. We've addressed that issue a few days ago with the need for more volunteers. We've been engaging the homeless situation from a little bit of a different avenue of trying to provide work and a steady income directly to provide the ability to sustain themselves when housing and stuff comes available. And so right as of now, that's been our main objective with most of these, is to engage them with the help of local businesses and some between Springs and Pueblo and here. Local ranchers, myself included, with jobs that we do regularly and including them in that work with us to try to help put some motivation into their lives and some proactive skills maybe that they didn't have before, engaging some of the skills they do have and bettering them. So that's kind of the game plan we're putting into effect this year. But just as far as what we're looking at, the only thing I wanted to address with y'all, it's not a heavy burden with what we're doing with them right now. But if we're looking at actually doing a day center for the entire community, depending on the numbers of what we're seeing now, we have to have a kind of a game plan of how we're going to help them get jobs, not just housing on top of that, because they're going to have to be able to do something to sustain their housing as they get into it. And so that's the direction we're wanting to look at going right now, which is going to require time, skill training, and that sort of thing. Most of this involves me directly, so the help of volunteers hopefully in the next couple of weeks will be imperative. But I just want to be here to answer a few questions you have about that before we settle this out.
Councilman Meissner?
I'll start. You mentioned jobs. Do you have any relationship or liaison or anybody that's working with the Upper Arkansas Workforce Center?
We're actually going to start meeting with them here hopefully in the next couple of weeks and coming up with a game plan. We direct some of them over there, but some of them that have been over there a couple times that have had a hard time finding jobs through that, we work through another group of people to try to help better the situation of getting them into a job. So.
Mayor Smith?
So you did have a big meeting a couple of weeks ago. Have you been able to get enough volunteers to help your day center?
When I talked with Mary, I think we're up to approximately 20 or so people that are looking like they're going to be a part of that. She'll have the final numbers, obviously, after the end of this week. We got a few stragglers she'll meet with in another week or two after that. So we'll have a better number of what we're looking at by the time the next week or two's out.
Okay.
So.
Carrie, are you mentioning this in an article at all? So it'd be good to have contact information for given to Carrie so that she can include that in the article.
We can definitely do that.
For maybe a reminder for those who've been thinking about volunteering.
Okay.
And how often will you be open?
We're going to be open right now just Monday through Friday due to the fact of the location we're using. Saturday and Sunday just kind of busy. So but it'll be Monday through Friday, and it'll be 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So.
Thank you for providing that service.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council?
I think just again, we realize this is an important service, and please keep us in communication. As needs arise or problems arise, we'd like to be part of the solution if we can.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Pastor Jamie.
Thank you.
Now we're going to switch topics and move to the off-highway vehicle discussion. Ryan, are you going to lead that, or?
Well, yeah, we had a request from a citizen, Tim McCain, to talk about off-highway vehicles and their use within, the city right-of-way and city streets, and possible economic impact that those might have. And I think he wanted to address council and see if there was any openness to the usage of OHVs on city streets.
Thanks.
And so, Tim, if you'd give us your name and address, please. And
Tim McCain, 423 Barrett here in Canyon.
thank you. And what do you got to tell us tonight?
Well, this was kind of your idea. You contacted me. John follows me on Facebook pretty good, so usually I'm posting things about other cities opening up their roads to off-highway vehicles for tourism. And John contacted me and said, hey, why don't you kind of put something together and see if this might work for Canyon City. And it had been on my mind for a number of years. And myself and the club members have visited other cities that do something similar. And just for tourism, it's tourism and getting folks into town and spending money.
and it's really beneficial. Towns that were against doing something like that, they're making a lot of money now because of it. You know, it's just another way of getting somebody into town to spend money. And so I've always had an idea of creating a route from Canyon City to West Cliff, and maybe sometime in the future towards Cripple Creek, and Canyon City kind of being the hub. So I figured I'd start with City Council and propose opening up some roads. Right now, it's we're just looking at just a little over 2 miles. It'd be from kind of where Fireman's Bluff is up on 4th Street, making our way down to First, across Highway 50, and then on the Main Street towards 15th. And the county would have to be involved in the rest of that to open up County Road 143 to eventually get a route to West Cliff. But I didn't know how council would feel about something like that, so I figured I'd start here and kind of see how things went, and then maybe pursue at a later date, talking with Fremont County and opening up it'd be County Road 143, which would be Oak Creek grade, and from like where the city limits are on 4th Street, they would have to open 16 miles of 143 to get to Custer County. I'm not sure if all of you know, all of the county roads within Custer County are open off-highway vehicles. Even the town of West Cliff and Silver Cliff. Each West Cliff has a little different set of rules than what the county does, but they all pretty much follow the same guidelines that I sent to everybody that's in the email for the state statutes. So basically that's it. We figured planned a route on Griffin past Centennial Park to give folks that are coming into town to, you know, stop at the park or plan a trip on the Main Street. One thing I did forget was, I mean, it's possibly they could cross 3rd Street at the light on Highway 50 to have access to the train also. And maybe a place to either unload their vehicles, or I was also thinking about the large lot up where the, I don't know if that's Public Works up there where the carnival is, kind of a staging area up there, just a little corner for folks to park cars and unload trailers for their vehicles.
Well, great. To put a little bit of context here, essentially, the cities and municipalities are authorized by state statute to permit off-highway vehicle use on their roads. They cannot, a city cannot permit that use on a state, on a CDOT owned roadway, highway. Where a city street may cross a state highway, that is allowable. It does require written permission from a CDOT to do that. You have to make a written application. They have, I think it's 90 days or 60 days to review it. And if they don't review it, it is considered approved. So it is something of a cut piece or a set piece that can happen. And so there's other moving parts to this. For something like this to happen, it would require action by ordinance by the city council to permit and set the conditions. The state statute actually has some guidance on what you can and cannot require of the users. And the other moving piece to this is the county, because when you transition off a city street onto a county road, the county has to also do this. And so with that, I think we'll just open it up here for a little discussion. Councilman Meisner?
Thanks, Tim.
You bet.
So it looks to me like, based on the map that's here, your route goes up to 15th and essentially stops. Is that-
Yeah.
I mean, you go up there and come back.
You could, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just an idea that I had. I mean, anything is possible or could be proposed. I mean, if you only want to go as far as 14th Street or something like that, I just figured the roundabout for just basically, you don't want anybody doing a U-turn in the middle of Main Street. And then I think, I'm not sure, but maybe beyond the roundabout, that's all CDOT owned. So I'm not sure if off-highway vehicles would be allowed on that road, on Fremont Drive. So I couldn't really go beyond Main Street, but the main focus was Main Street in the downtown area.
I also notice on your map that I assume the green is areas of access, is that coming off of Main Street, looks like you're also suggesting access north and south on each of those avenues.
Yeah, that's probably because there's some, there could be some businesses on the First through 15th that's, off the side, and also for parking more than anything, So they just gives just a little bit more parking area. If parking's not available right on Main Street.
You may have covered this, but John had mentioned some limitations, but are you looking at having, would there be an age restriction?
You got to have a driver's license and liability insurance on the machine to drive them on the road. I know some regulations I've seen is an age of 10 years old, as long as they're with operating the vehicle, as long as they're supervised by an adult that has a license, but I wouldn't let that happen. No, I wouldn't. Everybody would have to have a driver's license and liability insurance on their machine. And I carry liability insurance anyway. It's really inexpensive, and something happens, because there's a lot of areas that, you got Forest Service roads, county roads that are open to off-highway vehicles, and you never know what might happen, so I carry liability insurance, and a lot of people I think do. But that's just one of the requirements that.
Councilwoman Reed.
So piggybacking on that conversation about liability insurance, I would be curious how we would go about enforcing, making sure that that's the case, because many people don't have liability insurance on those. They pick them up for cash, and particularly myself, when I go, I usually take them to get away from people.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would be one of the ones that was wanting to drive it into people necessarily on Main Street, but I would be concerned about what that would look like from an enforcement standpoint, to make sure that all of these off-road vehicles that are coming in, particularly from other states, have the coverages that they would need for us to feel comfortable about them being on the roadways with school zones, kids, those types of things. I just think that would be a conversation that we would definitely want to make sure we continue.
Yeah, I know mine is, it's a liability insurance. You can insure, get a full coverage policy on them, for, operating them on the roads.
Absolutely, but because insurance is state-specific,
Right.
for us to be able to enforce that, I guess maybe just like we would do cars, if the police pulled them over, make sure that they have it. I
And
can
that's-
just see some enforcement issues in that particular area that I just think warrant some additional discussion on that particular
Yeah,
topic.
and that's what other communities do. I mean, it could be their city website, it could be the ordinance, it could be, it's all spelled out in the ordinance. Maybe parking area, their staging area where they might be unloading, might have a kiosk that gives the rules and regulations, Some cities may require for the folks to have their lights turned on when they're on the roads. West Cliff requires a flag, where Custer County does not. So there's different, Canyon City can adopt whatever regulation or rule that they want, to allow them on the streets.
And then maybe disperse the information, like you said, at
Yeah.
those parking areas and things? Is
Yeah.
that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that, or there could be brochures, social media. There's a lot of organizations like Stay the Trail that's out there. They could put things on their website. Yeah, you know, things
What
like-
does,
things
you
that way.
mentioned that Custer County allows it, and you said that Westcliff had some specifics on their requirements. Would you mind sharing some of those with us?
One of them, like I said, was the flags. They require a flag, just better, a little better visibility. I think one of the rules is they don't allow them to operate after dark. So just daytime hours only. They discourage them from riding after dark, and there's a couple more. But it's all on their website. And that's for Westcliff. Like I say, Custer County, the county itself has their own rules, but they follow the state statutes pretty good, you know. And I think they've had pretty good success with it up there. You know, they've got a lot of folks traveling to that area to, you know, it's kind of nice to camp at Deweese Reservoir and ride into Westcliff and then hit the Rainbow Trail or some of the campgrounds or other riding areas, you know, while you're there. And that's one thing that would be good about opening this route to Westcliff or Silver Cliff. We have, there's Tanner and Stoltz. There's Forest Service riding areas along County Road 143. There's Oak Creek Campground. Folks could camp there, ride into town, both
One of
directions.
those.
Yeah, or, you know, yeah, so, you know, it's both ways, you know, we could ride from here to there and folks from there to here, so.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, thank you so much for explaining that.
And on the issue of enforcement, you know, the statute allows us to do certain things like require liability insurance, but it also prohibits us from doing a couple of things, like imposing a fee. So in other words, we could not have a fee or a permit that would require them to pay a fee, where we would have a normal enforcement mechanism there, perhaps to make sure that they had liability insurance. So I think that would be through normal police enforcement activities, just like our personally owned vehicles, that we have to provide that on demand from an officer. Ryan?
Yeah, you know, I was just going to say, you know, we certainly have a higher population density and a lot more traffic here than Westcliff or Custer County. So, you know, there's certainly a lot of safety concerns and things like that we would have to look at. Mr. McCain and I, you know, we had a discussion about, you know, maybe even, you know, not necessarily on a permanent basis, but, you know, on a temporary or special event permit type of basis where, you know, looking at maybe developing a special event to, you know, try it out and, you know, see what kind of reception it gets.
And so, in terms of next steps, let's hear from Councilman Meisner first.
It's kind of off subject, maybe, but is there any classification with the e-bikes that falls under off-highway vehicles? Is the higher
I
end?
don't think so. I don't think
None of
so.
those three classifications? Didn't they do something weird with one of those classifications, I thought? Okay.
I know there might be issues with e-bikes on a regular bicycle trail, you
Right.
know, or single track type trail, but I don't, for an off-highway vehicle, I don't know. I mean,
I thought they classified.
they all go off-road.
Well, and bicycles are allowed on the streets.
True.
As a matter of course right now.
Bicycles, horses,
Mayor Smith?
Tim, I have a question.
okay.
I was wondering why you didn't have on here Temple Canyon Road. Thought that might be
Temple, well, that's also in the county. That's also a county road, so, I know there might be a section in there that's maybe city-owned, but, never thought of it. I was always kind of more of a destination type thing to get from one city to the next,
Gotcha.
you know? That's what other towns in Colorado have been doing. They've been doing that for a long time in Utah. It's really popular there to be able to, Utah has very large loops, 300-400 miles, where you could spend a different night in each town type of thing, you know, and make a 500-mile loop possibly. So, yeah, mine was more just to kind of maybe baby steps and start with one road, and we can always expand from there, you know. It's pretty much, yeah.
Sure, and so that, we do need to wrap this up here pretty quick. But Ryan, you know, perhaps you can think about this and either, you know, consult with the police chief. We certainly want him to be part of this discussion
Absolutely.
also. And if council's willing, perhaps bring us something back in terms of event related, or to give this a try and see if we can make something happen here that might be a benefit for the community.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it, and we can bring something back here, maybe a month and a half.
Bill, do you want to take a minute and talk, or?
Do you want a thumbs up
You
on
want a
that?
thumbs up on this, Jim?
Well, that's typical.
Okay, all right, why don't we do that? Let's get a sense of council.
2 miles.
2 miles to start with.
2 miles, is that from West Cliff to
No.
Canyon?
No, I
That'd be
wish.
nice. No, it's from where Fireman's Bluff is up on 4th Street to 15th on Main. So it's basically 4th to 1st onto Main Street and to 15th. It's 2.2 miles is what we're looking
Oh,
at.
the city road.
Is in the city limits. From beyond there, from like where the Prospect Heights Jail is, from there south is county roads, is what I have to get approval from the county. So just more of a sense, see if Canyon City would kind of be on board with this, I would then kind of shift my focus to the county and see how
Sure.
they're.
And so what we'll do is we'll do a sense of council here and start with you, Mr. Meisner.
My sense would be, I'm not opposed to it. I need more information. I think generally, it's kind of like the trails thing. Everybody assumes because people's in town, they're going to automatically spend money, and I don't think that's the case. As I would be more convinced to pursue this, as I would like to see more real figures in terms of economic impact from communities that didn't have it in terms of what's happened. But just to assume that because people are now driving on our streets locally, they're going to spend money, I think that's not necessarily true.
So
But I'm in favor of moving
Yeah.
forward.
yes for
I
the
mean,
next step.
it's just another way to get another user group into town. Once they find out, you know, it's not gonna be flooded all of a sudden. It could take a few years before it really catches on and word gets out, but it's just another way for somebody that enjoys the type of recreation that we do, just to get them into town and travel between towns. Get folks from West Cliff down here, Custer County. There's a lot of people that live along Oak Creek Grade Road that could ride into town. Not that they couldn't do that in their car, but it's just another way of, you know, traveling, just recreation, gives them access to trails and
Sure.
and stuff like that. So-
Great. So I would be a thumbs up on the next step.
Yeah, I would like to see,
Real quick, just to let you know, Florence has already implemented it. They're charging $15 permit for locals to be able to use it, so there's no reason you guys couldn't do the same thing. That's what I wanted to let you guys know. So you got to do a $15 permit to ride it in the city limits to get the inspection. So I know there's a way around it. I'm just suggesting,
gotcha.
talk to Florence, maybe communicate with them and say, what are you doing? Because they got it passed and they're doing it already. They're already issuing permits. So
Thank you.
just wanted to let you know that, somebody to talk to about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm interested in exploring about a lot more information, especially if there's other towns, the population and density size like Canyon City has, in a specific route. And probably would feel more comfortable if we started with some trial special events to see how it goes.
I pretty much agree with what Ashley just said, so thumbs up for me.
I'm also good with moving forward, but I would like to see some additional information as well.
Okay?
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck.
And there being no further business, we're adjourned.